Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Car is fucked. Completely fucked. Yeah, not good.
Hello/X/first-time poster here on 4chan. I have been thinking about posting on 4chan, especially /X/ about what you are going to read about. A mix of /K/ in there too. But I kept it hidden for a long time because of personal things that happened in my life since then, and also because of me thinking it was just going to be some temporary thing. I was wrong, so here I am. This is going to be a Greentext, but there is a lot of information and specifics, so I'll try to keep it as clean as I can with timestamps, some visual audio proof, and as much details as possible. There is going to be multiple people involved in these events, around 5 including me, so I will create some fake names. Joe, male, closest friend of mine. Sam, female, Joe's girlfriend. Max, male, Sam's best friend. And Ryan, male, Joe's friend. This happened in France, so please understand the laws and other things that are mentioned. This is going to be a very long post, so please hang on. Be me in my early 20s, a military gear mong and overall spook enthusiast. I have wanted to do urbex for a long time now, but every time there has been something that has stopped me from going. It was September of 2020. My father died unexpectedly at the end of the month. I am devastated and shocked, but I hold on. Some friends contact me again and I try to clear my head from the recent event. Joe, who contacted me to try to clear my head and to make me feel better, tells me to come to his place to have a drink. I accept. Sam, Ryan, and Max are also here. We all have a drink together moderately. Joe and I end up in the kitchen where we end up talking about spirits, and I tell him that I hope my father rests easy. It turns into a wholesome moment, glad to have him as a friend. The conversation then shifts into asking ourselves if those things exist, and we also end up thinking about possible abandoned areas. Joe tells me about an abandoned sanatorium in a forest midway in the mountains where we already went during the day, long ago, but never explored the place entirely. I just remembered about it when he told me. We then talk about urbex and I mention how much I'd like to do something like that during the night. We both like the idea and we ask the others if they'd want to join. Everybody agrees and so we plan it. At the beginning of October, a few days later, we settled for a Saturday night since we are all free. This marks the beginning of a multiple set of events that happened on different nights. Before heading there, I locate the area on a strategic maps app that I had, called MGRS and UTM map, put a few markers on it, and we have a briefing to plan things out. What we are doing is not legal in any way, so we are making sure we are careful enough, PIC related. Each flag corresponds to a building. There are 6 in total. The red flag is the main building, supposedly the most interesting one to visit, with each group of buildings inside of an orange circle, to calculate the distance of each area. On the top right of the picture, you have a red arrow that you can barely see on top of the road. This is the parking lot where we stopped with our 2 cars. You can see a clear field. As you can see, there are multiple entrances, multiple exits, and you can even rejoin the road from the other side of the complex, which can be useful if there is security. But this is obviously the least of our problems. There are multiple nights to it. Night 1, first encounter and happenings. We arrived at approximately 2100 hours at the complex. It was already dark and we stayed in the parking lot near the complex for around 30 minutes gearing up and had another briefing to make sure everything was understood before entering. We kind of got all the intel we could about the complex, and it is an abandoned sanatorium. 6 buildings, most of them are open with little to nothing stopping you from going inside. As mentioned earlier, it is illegal to go inside. So we were keeping a lookout for security and possible people that passed by the whole time. Anyway, at around 21:30 hours, we moved in. Our goal was simple: to explore, map the area, and enjoy the urbex in a safe manner, making sure everyone was careful and understood that it can turn dangerous very quickly. We, however, heard things about the place, so naturally, that's why we chose it in particular. It is not the safest place. There have been rumors of cultists, more precisely Satanists, that used those grounds at night, but also your common tagger that just wants to have fun, or other party-goers, so anyone really. So there I was, with medium-duty gear and 4 other people, with different kinds of stuff but mostly light type of gear. We all went for a more civilian concealed look except for me. We didn't bring any firearms, mainly because of the road, and because of other reasons that will come into play later on, you'll see. Mediumly geared with an FM12 gas mask with filters. No filters when outside the buildings, filters when going inside. Comms and amplified headset, bump helmet for head with white light on it. Riot gear protection, mostly for arms and legs. Melee weapons, non-lethal and lethal, plus things to subdue anybody that tries something bad. I was ahead of the group, 4 other people with lights, on point, entering the complex toward the first yellow flag, top right of the picture, with white lights. Every one of us had lights, and we were sticking close to each other the whole time. We enter the first building, tags everywhere potentially made during the day. It is a big building with around 5 floors, a huge staircase in the middle with elevators on the side and another huge open part in the back with rooms. We started with the bottom part, clearing every room the best we could as sneakily and fast as possible. All clear, I check my watch. It is now 21:50. We then moved up another floor, cleared it and then decided to not go up too much because of the crumbling danger, plus the layout would potentially be the same anyway. Then came Max. He was telling us that he wanted to visit the 3rd floor specifically. Why? No idea. He just felt like he wanted to do that. We told him it was a bad idea, but he did it anyway. He came back 2 minutes later and told us there was nothing. We told him to not take unnecessary risks. He agreed and we moved back down. We moved to the other building, the second yellow flag below the first one. However, we see crashed cars in front of it. Apparently, my friend Joe already went here not long ago and it wasn't here. It is a recent crash. There are several cars with surgical masks inside. Definitely happened recently. I took a video of the first car quickly. The battery was at around 95%. We then started moving again. We didn't enter the second building and moved on to the taller and bigger main building where we planned to enter. Red flag. However, it was blocked off and we decided to keep it for last. We moved to the 4th building, yellow flag below the red flag. We entered it, cleared the bottom and first floor. It was literally the same layout, and it was around 22:40 when we came out. And that's when shit started happening. 2 of the group, Ryan and Sam, decided they wanted to go back to the car in the parking lot. They were too spooked and stayed to keep a lookout instead of staying with us 3. All good. We sent them back to the car and they stayed inside one of them, phone ready to signal us for anything and stay in contact. So we are now 3. We moved to the building at the bottom. Same layout, however this one had an outer building that looked like a garage with burnt cars inside. We went in and it started raining, an important detail as our footprints were now visible inside the building since we were drenched and the inside was somewhat dry. There is another exit on the other side. One of us hears footsteps inside as we are leaving the building. We all turn and there is nobody. We then see 2 fresh footprints on the side we didn't go to. However, there were just 2 footprints, no continuation at all on them in the middle of the other exit. We got ready for possible human contact at first with non-lethal, taser and batons, as we didn't want to kill anybody, so we then basically made sure it was entirely clear. And it was, nobody else around. After thinking about it for a bit, we then headed for the last building, making sure that we'll go back to our cars right after checking it. We don't want to encounter anybody else. As we arrived at the last building, the yellow flag on the bottom left of the map, we sweeped the bottom floor, forcefully opening a room that revealed some sort of dead generator. We looked around and moved to the first floor. I got a short video of it. Noticed the static noise in the background. I was close to the end of the hallway. Something deep in my mind kept me from going in the last room. I left afterward. Also, my phone battery was getting drained like hell, and I noticed it was mostly dead. I could only record 1 video and it died. It only happened for my phone though. One of our flashlights was also malfunctioning. It flickered and turned off the moment we started leaving the building, and that's when we decided to go back to the car to join the others and leave. But we heard sounds coming from within the building we just were inside of, behind us. I had the feeling I was being watched, and it sounded like footsteps and rustling. We almost instantly ran back to the car. However, we stopped at the central building after we heard a branch crack on our left side in the big wooded area in between yellow flag 1, top right, and the red flag. Halfway there, we got a phone call from the people in the car. Something white and apparently heavy got on the front part of their car, and it made it shake so hard that it moved it. They sent us a panicked call on the phones. We were already on alert, so we instinctively went back to the car as fast as we could. The whole time, though, we could almost not hear anything on the phone, as if something was fucking with it. Coming back to the car, we saw that their car had left. They went to the closest city in search of safety. We checked around the car for any sightings of the entity, but found nothing. Until we left toward their direction. We went the same way as them, and we literally saw the white ball of sorts on the right side of the road, literally headed in the same direction. It moved around 1 kilometer on the side of the road from the time they moved to the time we crossed its path. I did a 180 on the empty road after seeing it to try and intercept it or get a better view, but it was gone. We then regrouped in the nearby city and debriefed. They explained that as they were waiting in the car, they saw something inside of my car while they were waiting, a black figure in my driver's seat that my car was next to them at the time. They then felt the white thing and saw it on the front of their car. They drove off in panic and they saw it chase after them while they were leaving. There was no damage on the car, no real marks that showed it was there, just some dirt where it supposedly hit. That's the first time we went at night. It was just a bit before 2300 hours when weird stuff started happening, and around 2330 when we arrived at the car and they got spooked. Max and one of the persons in the fleeing car, Sam, will be important on the second encounter. Picture is the destroyed car we found. Night 2, second encounter and happenings. A few days later, we decided to go again at around the same time, at 2100 hours. However, we came more prepared. After debriefing everything and talking about it, the white thing was apparently a physical entity of some kind. We do not know what, but it was determined to make them flee and interact with the car. We do not know what the other black entity was, but who knows? I've been thinking that maybe the white entity was a good one, and making them flee because of the black entity. Again, who knows? It's purely speculation. Before going, we stopped way further in another city and ate some pizza on a cool-looking parking lot, PIC-related, and we decided to be way quicker and plan it way more than before. I got heavier duty gear for a possible physical encounter. A plate carrier with ballistic plates inside, level 3 plus ultra-lightweight polyethylene. A lighter vest below, level 3A that is also stab-proof, along with trauma plates, pauldrons, and groin protection attached to the plate carrier. Overall level 3A rated, but also impact and stab-resistant. Believe me when I say that French laws about body armor are pretty relaxed. Weapons not so much, unfortunately. Still no guns. We also got better flashlights and spare batteries, however I wish I also got chem lights because they glitched again at some point. Damn tech, or damn ghosts messing with it. So overall, I was pretty nicely armored myself. I guess I overdid it even because it bounced back at us later on. Our goal this time was to take pictures of the cars, the plates that were still on the cars, and gather intel, along with way better overall pictures. We got an actual camera with us for that effect, and I even got my GoPro Hero 3. Yes, I know, the last pic is clearly a mole rat LARP from SCP. I just liked the patches and the LARP LOL. It was not really the thing I used, but the pauldrons were. We arrived at the place a little later, at around 21:45 hours, however. We stayed in the parking lot way longer and scanned the area from outside to see if we saw anything weird or heard any noises. It was mostly calm. I personally did not see anything, but my friend Joe and Ryan said they saw a white thing moving inside the second building facing the parking lot. Bottom right yellow flag on the first pic, on the 4th floor. After waiting in the parking lot for around 30 minutes, it was now 22:20, and we decided to move in according to plan, as fast as we could and get out not long afterward. However, a few minutes after entering, only having made around 50 meters inside of the complex, I halted everybody, and we started hearing a lot of footsteps and rustling all around us, in the bushes, in the buildings, and I heard faint whispering in my comms, We felt something didn't want us there. Now I am thinking that it is because of the equipment I had. It thought we were possibly attacking it. Thus it became aggressive, but that's only a theory. So we left as fast as we could but remained in the parking lot. It was around 22:30. We were talking about what just happened. Ryan was going apeshit, fearing that something worse might happen if we sticked around. I was talking to Joe about what we should do next, that we should come back during daytime and not stick around during nighttime, as it is obviously too dangerous and stupid. Joe agreed, but Sam wanted to go inside now. There were a few buildings we haven't seen, but one piqued her particular interest. She really wanted to go into the other yellow flag building that was near the road, the yellow flag on the top left of the map picture. I don't know why she wanted that, but I got a bad feeling about it, so I told her not to do so. She argued back. Joe also told her, and she went quiet for a bit. Max wasn't saying much. He was sitting on the side of the car, but at some point, he and Sam started arguing with each other as I was looking away toward the complex. Apparently, Max said something about Sam that she heard and it got her mad. I can't remember what it was though, but it apparently made no sense. Sam and Max started almost physically fighting each other. Now, I don't understand myself, but it was such a sudden change of emotions because they're usually best friends. They never fought before, and especially not like that. It's as if they wanted to kill each other. We separated them and got very confused about the situation at the time. Sam then went, "Fuck it, I'm going in the complex. We're not going to stand here all night," and forcefully started making her way toward the building I mentioned earlier. Me and Joe instantly went for her and physically stopped her, as well as dragging her back to the car. That's the moment where I personally said, "Fuck that shit, we're leaving." Max was out of the car at this point and Sam went into it. Max was already sitting down in the same car as Sam, but I knew it wasn't going to be good, so I grabbed his arm and told him to come with us instead, because it wasn't good for the both of them. Good call on my side because it went really bad afterward. So Ryan and Sam went into their own car. Me, Joe, and Max went in our own car. Joe stayed at the front with me and Max stayed at the back. I didn't trust Max to stay next to me because of a fear that he might try to grab the wheel and make us have an accident. It was around 23:40 when we left the sanatorium. We dipped to go back to our place and end this situation, then possibly figure out what was wrong with him. However, as we were driving on the road, Joe kept a close eye on Max with his taser. Max being completely silent and looking down with his hood up in the back. And Ryan driving in front of us, we had to stop because Sam was literally biting her own hand bloody. We stopped on the side of the road and I recalled Joe going outside to check on Sam. Max suddenly wanted to go outside but be as far as he could from Sam. I allowed him to do so, going outside too and keeping an eye on him with my baton. Joe came back rushing with his first aid kit and asked if I had anything she could bite on. I gave him a spare black leather belt that I had and he took it. Max was further away this time. I told him to come back multiple times, but he wouldn't listen. So I went, grabbed him by the arm and got him to the car again. Apparently, Sam started screaming and Ryan's car was banging around and started to bite herself bloodied, so he had to stop because they would probably crash otherwise. I decided to call the other car and stay on a call to have some in real-time update with Ryan. It proved very useful for the trip. We arrived at a parking lot in front of Joe's house. We stopped, and as I was stopping my car next to Ryan's, Max told me to go further away and stay far. He didn't want to be close to Sam. So I did. I went to the other side of the parking lot and stopped. He agreed that it was far enough. She ruined my belt, literally ripped it apart and rendered it useless. Rest in peace, poor leather belt. We were now in the city and I still had my whole attire. People were passing by from time to time, but it was mostly calm. They must have thought me and Joe were police and stopped some drunk teenagers giving them a drunk test because nobody questioned it, which was pretty hilarious at the time. This is a complicated part. I was confused at the time even though I noticed pretty fast what was happening. It both shocked and angered me, mostly because of how frustrating it was to interact with the two and the fact it continued until early morning. Ryan is a believer of the paranormal, and he carried some stuff with him at the time like white sage sticks, Palo Santo wood, lavender, and even cedar. He gave me and Joe some of each that we then used around our area, the cars, Max and Sam. They really disliked it. It wasn't a problem for us. We tried talking to them. Max said that it was like he was in shackles. He couldn't move his body, but only a few fingers. They were both very mad at each other. Max was constantly asking if Sam was close by and told us to keep her away at all cost. We obviously did that. We wouldn't allow blood to be spilled. While Ryan was talking to Sam and Joe was constantly alternating between our two groups, I was talking to Max, trying to unfold what the hell it was about. He told me to keep the fumes away and that when he closed his eyes he could see a little girl. A little girl? Can you describe her to me? A little girl with a red skirt. She has medium-length chestnut hair, very young, but she has no face. WTF.jpg. What the hell, of course it's a little girl. Oh God, fear game memories intensifies. I try not to panic, ask Joe to come over and tell him sneakily. Tell him to go ask Sam if she sees anything. Sam says that she sees a different entity. It looks meaner. It looks like it has red eyes, a grin with teeth going on both sides of the face, but it is apparently also a mix in between a werewolf and a human. It apparently looks so terrifying that she has panic attacks every time she sees it. Asks her if she sees anything else. She says she also sees half of a little girl, but it's very faint. They never mentioned it to her. She is not supposed to know. Okay, think of something. We try to talk to them for a bit and figure out more, but nothing works. Then we have the idea of trying to see what would happen if we made them go near each other. Terrible idea.png. At this point, my car is full of sage smoke, and Max can move a bit more. Sam apparently feels a bit better at some point, and she decides to go near Max to help our cause. We don't tell Max, and Sam gets close to the car. Max starts shaking and he asks where Sam is. We lie to him, but he cannot see her. He knows we are lying even though he cannot see her. He can feel her. We tell her to come here. This lunatic then grabbed my sage stick, putting sage particles and flammable shit all in the backseat of my car. Even after I told him to not grab it, I hit him with my baton in the hand, yelling at him that he is getting tased the next time he does that shit. He goes passive again. I tell him to calm down while also trying to calm myself down. He then relaxes. At this point, I think the girl that is inside of him dips for a minute or so, either because of fear or the other entity. I make Max sit on the edge of my car from the inside. Sam is not in front of him, and she's telling him that everything is okay now. I have no clue what Ryan did to her so that she could be normal again, but props to him for handling it on his side. She is trying to use emotions to drag him back toward her. Being best friends, I think this is the only logical thing to do. Remembering old memories and making his true self come out on top. Making him come back to his senses, I guess. After a sort of wholesome discussion with her trying to make him stand up, they both hug. They both started crying uncontrollably for a few seconds, and the sage literally blows up. It fucking blows up, disintegrates, and Max fell unconscious for 5 seconds. I have no idea what happened, but I saw it with my own eyes, and it still terrifies me. We went to pick him up and I moved back a bit. Apparently he was himself again and felt better. So was Sam. We all decided to go to another city that was near the sea, even though it was now 1:30 a.m. to hopefully relax. We arrived around 20 minutes later and walked toward the rocks and sea. We sat on a bench. I noticed that Max was silent again the moment we stopped the car. I notified Joe and Ryan. They both tell me they don't think it's over yet. I keep a close eye on them from now on. We were talking about the ordeal earlier near the rocks, all of us on a bench and around. Remember when I told you it was a complicated and frustrating part? Well, here is why. There is no way to know if it's over or not. I was keeping a very close eye on them both, looking at their eyes, how they reacted, and making sure they weren't going to pounce on each other the first moment they get. I then felt something weird in my back at the bottom of my spine. It made my skin crawl and I turned instantly. I cursed and almost yelled, "I swear to God, if you try that again, I will fucking kill you." And it stopped. It was as if my emotions changed in a matter of seconds, and I couldn't control myself. There was nobody behind me. Joe looked at me confused. He knew something was up. I moved back from the group and said, "It's not over, guys." Well, guess what? It happened right after, a minute or so later. I noticed that both Sam's and Max's eyes changed. They both looked like they wanted to kill each other again. In a matter of a second, they then both went for each other's throats. It took me and Joe to keep Max away entirely. We are both way more buff than him. It was unusual for him to be that strong. Sam was held by Ryan only and pushed back. She gave up almost instantly. We went for a walk with Max for a bit. Ryan did the same with Sam on the other side, near the beach side. We stopped at the other end of the area. Think some kind of rocky dock on the side of some rocks in the sea. Well, at the end of that. We sat Max down on the ground and we waited. I tried to talk to him, but he wouldn't answer. He then looked downward and started whispering things. I looked at him for a bit, asked him what he saw, and he described the little girl again, this time with a face, and more details appeared. Black top, she has a delicate-looking mouth, semi-slit light brown eyes. Her hair was now curled. It felt like she was scared and that she also had hatred within. I sighed and looked at the beach, searching for Sam and Ryan. I could see them on the other side talking to each other. I was already tired of this bullshit and just wanted it to stop. Physically tired, too. I then heard the most terrifying thing I've ever heard from behind me, but not where Max was sitting, from behind him. A very low-pitched voice that sounded like nobody around here, not the voice of a human, the actual voice of a demon. I turned out of confusion because I thought he said something to me and I asked, "Wait, what did you just say to me?" However, I noticed it wasn't him that spoke the moment I turned. Joe told me he didn't speak though, and he didn't hear anything. I thought I was going insane. I told him what I heard, but I honestly can't recall it. Just thinking about it terrifies me now. I moved around and told Joe we needed to leave. It was way too late and we had to go. It was already around 2 a.m. We gathered the others and left by car, but before we could leave, Max told me that the little girl waved goodbye to him, as if she was leaving. Him and Sam then turned up normal for the rest of the night. We had to drive them back to their place. However, as you guessed, it wasn't finished. A few days later, we called Joe's mother, who is a medium and does purifications. We told her and she supposedly fixed Sam. However, Max has never been fixed. Max has devolved into taking hard drugs and has been acting way differently since then. Sam has been getting better and better, and I got a purification too, as well as having some of my personal items shielded or something. Nothing really got to me and I'm doing fine. I am, however, still confused about all of that. We've all had very weird dreams since then, about the exact same little girl having trials for us in our dreams. Joe has had different dreams, but the latest one was a dream where he had to face her one-on-one and he defeated her with a sword. She hasn't come back for him since then. Sam also had dreams about her, but she cannot remember them. I've had one lucid dream about her where she ambushed me in some abandoned manor, and I ended up yeeting her from a huge window. She hasn't come back for me since then. Ryan also had a dream, the same kind as Joe's, and he managed to defeat her as well. Sam still tells us that she feels like something is missing from her, and that she needs to go to recover it in the building where she initially wanted to go before we dragged her away. I bought around 20 chem lights of red and green color to mark things and got other equipment like a drone. I am going to work toward a firearms license so I can defend myself better as well. We are, however, facing another quarantine from the plague, and it's not going to be several months before we go there again. I am willing to answer any questions that you guys might have about it. I know I didn't tell things exactly the way they were, as there are way too many details. It already took me hours to write this off from memory and I am tired. I also used the creation timestamps from what I took back then to remember the approximate time of the happenings.
I got a story for you all. It's been a few years, but I still remember it like it happened yesterday. Kinda annoying to be typing it out in Greentext on a European keyboard, but screw it, tradition and all that. B21, best friend just got his permanent driver's license and wants to use his car to go camping in the Alps in the south of France. It's me and 2 friends, including the one with the car. We're thinking we can drive from Belgium all the way to the south of France in one day, so we leave in the morning. After hours of driving and a lot of stress for my best buddy, he's the only one who could drive, we decided to camp out in the middle of nowhere since it's getting dark. This is somewhere in the south of France. No idea where exactly, but it was all small roads and forest all around us, with no lights, not even street lights. We find a clearing on the side of the road, park there, take our camping shit out of the trunk and head into the woods to find a suitable place to place our tent. At this point, the sun is almost gone and the forest is really dense, but luckily, we find a clearing and quickly make a fire and set up our tent. We boil some water over the campfire in our pot and eat our instant noodles, smoke a cigarette, piss out the fire, and get in the cramped tent to go to sleep. This is a small tent, so it had us lying in there shoulder to shoulder, all three of us next to each other, with me on the left side. It's a full moon, so there's some of that light shining through the canopy of trees onto the front of our tent. This is important. I'm an insomniac, so I was probably lying there with my eyes closed for about half an hour, when a light source to the left of me caught my attention through my closed eyelids. I open my eyes, look to my left, and I see what looks like a flashlight in the distance, about 100 meters away, shining right onto our tent. I figure it's a forest ranger coming to tell us we can't camp here or some shit, so I whisper to the other guys and ask if they're awake. They are, and they see the light too. We're discussing what to say to the guy when he inevitably tells us off, and we decide our bilingual Dutch-French-speaking friend is to handle it since me and my buddy can't speak French for shit. All the while, this light is coming closer. At a certain distance, I would say about 20 meters away from the tent. Keep in mind, it's hard to gauge distance of an outside light source when inside a tent in a pitch-black forest, except for the moonlight. The light just suddenly goes out completely. All of us shut up for a while, but we hear nothing. Literally dead silent environment. After about 30 seconds, I break the silence and ask the guys what the hell that light was. Of course, they didn't know either. Remember earlier I said the moon was shining on the front of our tent? Well, I look to the front of the tent, and I see a shadowy figure standing literally right in front of our tent, its silhouette cast by the moonlight. From the angle we were in, you could clearly make out a torso, long arms to the side and about half of the length of its legs. But the head wasn't projected on the tent. Internally, I'm freaking out at this point, so I grab my puny-ass Swiss Army knife and look over to the guys. They see it too. My bilingual friend starts saying shit in French to this figure. Hello? Who are you? Stuff to that effect. No answer. This figure is just standing there with its long arms by its side, motionless. At this point, I'm convinced some lunatic is ready to murder or rape us, and my survival instinct takes over. So I open the Swiss knife, silently grab the zipper, and then as quickly as I could, I opened the tent and just jumped out to try to tackle this person to the ground in one fell swoop. I jumped out and there is nothing there, nothing at all. Me and my friends look around the tent, we shine our flashlight behind the closest trees, nothing. Now this is what makes it extra freaky. It was the middle of a dry summer and the forest floor was littered with dry ass sticks and leaves. No way anyone could step over to our tent without making a single sound. Man nor animal, let alone nope out of there in the split second it took me to open the tent. This thing, whatever it was, somehow was able to sneak up to the front of our tent without stepping on the floor. To rule out pareidolia, I went back in the tent, closed it up, and looked to see if the figure we saw was somehow a figment of our imagination caused by clouds passing by the moon or trees or whatever. There were no shadows in front of our tent at all anymore. My bilingual friend took a scare shit behind the closest tree, and then we noped out of the forest to sleep in the car that night. We just left the tent in the forest and came back to pick it up the morning after. The rest of the trip was uneventful. Anyone have any idea what we witnessed that night? I've Googled cryptids from France, but nothing came up that matched what we saw that night. If any one of you have any ideas, please let me know. This is by far the creepiest shit me and my friends ever witnessed, and it's a complete mystery.
Okay, here's a story, my first Greentext, so it will probably be shit. Be my grandmother around 25 years ago. Split time working between the UK and France. Most of the time in the UK, but around 3 months a year in France. Make friends with one of her colleagues in France, a younger guy called Michael. Welsh, but has a posh accent because his parents were deaf and learnt to speak through listening to the radio. When she's in France, she and Michael would get coffee together, chat in breaks, nothing crazy. One time she arrives to work in France and he's not there for the duration. No big deal. Maybe he's away or got a new job or something. Another 8 or so months later, she goes back to France and he's not there again. Asks another colleague what happened to Michael. Apparently he just sort of didn't show up one day and that was that. No one knows. A few years passed and my grandmother is chilling in the staff break room. She looks round and Michael is standing in the doorway. They make small talk. How are you doing, etc. After a quick conversation, she excuses herself as she has to go and see clients, thinking nothing of it. Later on, grandmother sat with other colleagues and mentioned she saw Michael. Suddenly, they all start to get mad, asking her why she'd say that. She insists she has seen him, but they say she is lying. Confused why everyone is getting so pissed, she asks why she couldn't have seen him. Turns out his body was found a couple of years back. He'd been murdered. No obvious motive and case unsolved. To this day, my grandmother is adamant that she saw and spoke to this guy who had been killed years prior.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.